Welcome back to 40 Minute Mentor, the podcast brought to you by JBM, a search firm that places executives and future leaders into high-growth startups and scale-ups. Last week, we launched our new VC feature series, in which we bust some common myths about the industry, hear what the best VCs in Europe are currently looking to invest in, and share some candid advice for anyone looking to break into the industry. Today, I'm joined by the brilliant Antoine Nussenbaum, the co-founder of Felix Capital. Felix are a VC firm for the creative class, operating at the intersection of technology and creativity. They focus on digital lifestyle, investing in brands like All Plants, Dot, Deliveroo, Farfetch, Papier, to name but a few, and also related enabling technologies. In today's episode, Antoine and I discuss how Felix Capital came to exist, the common traits he sees amongst successful entrepreneurs they invest in, how he's building Felix like a football team, and his candid advice for founders looking for investment and anyone looking to get into VC. There's so much brilliant advice in this episode, so get your notebooks ready, sit back, relax, and enjoy the upcoming 40 minutes with Antoine Nussenbaum. Antoine, welcome to 40 Minute Mentor. It's a real pleasure to have you on the podcast today. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you, James. Thanks for having me today.
It's a real pleasure. I'm a big fan of yours and Felix, so I can't wait to get into it. But before we start, we always like to get our listeners to know a bit more about you. So we always start with some quick fire questions. So please finish the following sentences after me. My first job was
selling bed linens and towels at Galeries Lafayette in France.
Oh, wow. Nice. That's a first for the podcast. I can't say I ever sold linen. I did make beds once as part of a summer job, which was hundreds of beds, which I think ever since then I've hated making my bed. My first ever investment was?
My first ever investment was in a company called Pave in New York, which was a platform investing in people. You were trying to support entrepreneurship and creativity by investing, giving some money ahead to people so they can pay back their mortgage from university or college and whatsoever and fulfill their entrepreneurship dream. And you were getting a little percentage of their future income in return. But the purpose of it was really to invest in people.
Love that. Very apt, given what we do. Love anything people-centric. The deal I am most proud of is?
We never discriminate portfolio companies at Felix, but I would say the deal I'm the most proud of is investing in Felix, investing in our platform. Maybe in an irrational way, but at the core of all my money has been going into this journey, and I'm very proud of it. On the personal side, it's closing my wife, Gabby. Yeah.
Very, very good answer. I love that. Brilliant. I wish I'd have invested in.
So when we just started Felix in 2015, one of the first startup demo day I've done was a seed camp. It was Nikolai from Revolut presenting there. He was just coming out of seed camp. And I was actually sitting next to Rob Moffat from Balderton, who ended up leading this round, which was a very small round, £1 million round. And I remember Nikolai saying, if you want to chip in 300K, you guys can. And at the time, it was very far-fetched for us because we were launching Felix and the association with fintech wasn't obvious, and also it was coming very quickly just about after the fund was just launched. So we passed on the opportunity. So I would say we kind of joke about it quite often.
I think every VC has one of those, don't they? The one that got away. Thanks for sharing. That's really interesting. The hardest part of being a VC is?
I would say it's similar to the best part somehow. Is dealing with gray. I think the core of being a VC is about people like you, James, and things are not black and white. It's not about science or building a product. It works, it doesn't work. It's not 0 or 1. It's dealing with gray, and somehow that's maybe why you can have an impact in some of this journey. Is because you can help founders to build awareness around how to deal with gray also, and some key decisions they have to face.
So true. Yeah, I regularly say to anyone that asks me, it's by far and away the best part of the job is the people I meet and work with. And it's the worst part because people change their minds, people turn down jobs, things happen, and it can also be the cause of the most stress. So I completely relate to that. Finally, can you share something that we couldn't learn from your CV that could be a failure or a setback that you've learnt a lot from?
I think I would say fairly early in my career, I had the opportunity to be an entrepreneur. And it was a short stint because we took the shortcut there. So, we started building a brand in software. We were building software for kindergarten management, so kindergarten management solutions. And fairly quickly in our journey, our first client approached us to buy us. But in reality, we were a bit under pressure because without getting into too much detail, he felt he had a big implication in developing the code, so the product. And so as a result was either we were giving it the software or we would have to fight a kind of legal battle. And I think at the time we took the easy path because we were young and naive somehow. And sometimes wonder what would have happened if we would have tried to fight this cause a bit longer. But it brought me to Felix, so I can't complain.
Well, that's it. I think every cloud has a silver lining. That's really interesting. I think we often find that the most successful leaders, we have some sort of failure along the way or something that is unfulfilled. And I guess with Felix, you've gone to the next level of backing founders and being a founder yourself. So I think it's worked out for the best, I think. Well, it's kind of the perfect segue actually talking a bit about your entrepreneurial career, because I'd love to start there. And I'm sure our listeners would be interested in hearing a bit of an overview of your CV, kind of how you ended up getting into VC in the first place and what ultimately led you to starting up Felix Capital.
So I started, so I'm from Paris. I think everyone would have noticed the accent by now, French strong accent. But so I originally started my career valuing brands and patents. So what we call intangible assets. But what was very helpful for me is getting this awareness around the power of brand very early in my journey. And so we were evaluating brands in the context of brands being acquired, dormant brands being acquired, but also litigation situations. So, for example, LVMH suing eBay because eBay is selling fake Louis Vuitton bags on their platform. What is the impact on the brand? What is the damage on the brand? So I was doing this kind of job, consulting job, which is in between marketing and finance somehow, but very focused around what a brand is. What is the value of a brand or a patent? I left this to become an entrepreneur in what I just mentioned before. So, building this software for kindergarten management. And that was with the outcome we just discussed. So we end up selling these businesses 2 years later in 2006. And this is when I moved to London. So it's been now 16 years that I've been a Londoner. My first year in London were in advisory, focusing on consumer, retail, and industrials. Stayed there 4 years, and in 2010 I moved to the investment side. So it's been 12 years. I've been an investor. In the meantime, supporting my wife in entrepreneurship journey, my brother, and other relatives, and bumped into Frederick in 2013, who had already built an amazing journey as an investor. He had already backed companies like Farfetch and been the first investor in Farfetch, and previously also been an entrepreneur. And we spoke for a year or so, and after we ended up working on Felix formally in 2014 and investing from January 15. We'll be soon 8 years already.
Amazing. Congratulations. What a ride as well. And I'm sure lots of people listening will know about Felix, but do you mind telling our listeners a bit about what makes Felix such a unique VC firm? What are the biggest USPs that any founders listening that might be looking to raise? Why should they pick you? And why did you also pick the digital lifestyle niche?
The beauty of being able to start a firm is that you can shape it the way you are passionate about and with what you're passionate about on the day to day. And I think we are obsessed by the end users, by people, by consumers. And we are obsessed also by just witnessing the shift in behaviors and cultural shifts that are happening at a much faster pace than before. And our belief is that that's thanks to the evolution of the digital space. So we built Felix to be a fund for the creative class that invests at the intersection of creativity and technology. And what it means is that we're big believers in the power of brand, in the power of design, the power of data. But if you think about the power of brand, this is somehow a very contrarian perspective in our industry. Most of our colleagues, rightly or wrongly, don't put much emphasis on this. Think there's limited barrier to entry when we think about brand building. We're much more focused on the technology side of things. So one of our biggest USP is both originally more in consumer-facing proposition, in branded proposition, but today the software industry is seeing exactly the same stigma around building tools that are building brands, very focused on the community of end users with the same type of reflex you see in consumer businesses. But what we can be is this partner that understand brand building, that understand end user, that understand community, that understand how to reach to consumers. And with a wider thinking in terms of, we can apply this to many lifestyle verticals, from the way you behave with your aspiration for a better life, but it can be from a nutrition perspective up to how you interact with finance, your financial wellness. All the filter around the power of brand design or data can apply on any of these verticals, and the same goes for software. And I think that what we try to be very well perceived for in the market, and it's kind of, true approach brand building and communities.
You absolutely are, and I think it's a real unique selling point. Consumer brands, and particularly e-commerce, I guess, have seen huge change in recent years, and there's definitely challenges in the current economic climate. Lots of talk at the moment of the cost of living crisis, an imminent recession. So it's an interesting time, but despite all of that, you've just raised a new fund to further double down in B2C startups and the digital lifestyle. So what are your thoughts on the near-term future for B2C companies? And also, what are the big opportunities for consumer brands?
We somehow, on our side, quite excited, actually. We are consistently there in this market. When the consumer topic is somehow kind of sensitive topic in the investor industry, you have people that come and go depending on where we are in the cycle. For us, we just have a thinking. It's a bit when people say it's in market downturn that you've seen the best successes built. Think about 2009, Airbnb, and so on. This works the same for consumer proposition. I think it's in market downturn that you see the best of entrepreneurship, where you go back to being when creativity is at its best when it comes to building new businesses, because simply you can't rely as easily on capital, on external capital. So that's one thing. And after there's a pure macro element is when you're in market downturn, you have to change your habits. You have to change a new normal, and that creates new proposition, new opportunities. So the fact we have timed well our fundraising, and we're now in a position to deploy capital, actually makes this kind of the short, medium, and long term very exciting for us. And the reality is also is that we have more quality time to build genuine relationship with entrepreneurs. So obviously, there's a lot to do in understanding the consumer patterns post-COVID, aside from the downturn. Frankly, there's been this kind of unique cycle, this unique tailwind around e-commerce, which is now with the side effect that now things are much more flat and the recession is not going to help here. But we are long-term investors. So, and our big belief is that there will be always new agent of change, very creative minds building new propositions. It's going to be even more relevant to consumers of today and tomorrow. So our mission is to be there to understand this shift in trends, to understand this new proposition, and be there to partner with these people.
It's wonderful to hear such a positive response to that question. There's a lot of naysayers, a lot of negativity, but I must say that I think some of the best investors that I know and the best people are remaining sort of sensible and cautious, but at the same time still positive. And I think that's really reassuring for any founders that are listening to this. So thank you. I think there are going to be people out there right now that are maybe just not sure about what's coming because they haven't lived through an economic downturn before. You've been investing for a long time and have had to advise founders before on how to kind of survive and hopefully thrive, whether it's to become the next Airbnb. So what advice do you have for any founders listening that are in that situation right now?
There are some, pragmatic advices which you will hear all across the board is, you have to manage your run rate accordingly. That comes first. You need to make sure more than ever that you have a clear alignment with your closest source of capital, which are more probably the investors you have in your cap table that you have on board. So more than ever, this is the time to have a clear dialogue, to align them around the table and to make sure that they are supportive in the plan you have in mind. Having said that, I think I see a lot of entrepreneurs trying to be too tactical almost, and sometimes forgetting what matters the most, which is building a great business, building a product that your end user will love. And right now you can compromise maybe on the truth is that you can compromise on growth, on acquiring growth, on spending on acquiring growth, and focus more on building a real business, a great business. And that comes with, having retention, if it's a SaaS product or consumer product, having repeat, having just clear sign of customer love and making sure your proposition stands apart in your category. I think it's also an opportunity actually to, in current downturn, to reshape the culture you have internally. A lot of these companies have been going through a unique stage of growth where the access to capital was very cheap or easy. And things are changing. And naturally, when this happens, the culture can be impacted in some of companies where just everything is easy. And when everything is easy, you fight sometimes less. So the fighting spirit, the kind of commando spirit kind of erode a bit. The venture industry is a very specific industry where it's with a stigma of go big or go home. And people tend to feel there's almost no middle ground. And I think if you want to go big today in a market downturn, more than ever, you need to have a team that is ready to go at war, is ready to fight. And the downturn can be a way for you to reestablish leadership and to be able to reshape the culture internally. So you have proper fighters aligned with the mission and the next step for the business.
Absolutely fantastic advice, Antoine. And I think that's so true. And a common theme on this podcast has been trying to understand who is actually really ready for the reality of startup life. We all know that there's a lot of hype around the tech ecosystem and lots of people want to be involved, but I think sometimes they're not actually the right people for it. And same with entrepreneurship and founders. And I think these sorts of difficult times really separate the good from the great and who's got the resilience to really handle the harder times. And often the best companies come out the back of that. Felix has funded some of the most popular consumer scale-ups in recent years: Deliveroo, Farfetch, Allplants, Papier. Can you share what particularly stood out about these entrepreneurs and founders and also firms that convinced you to invest?
We were convinced with any of these entrepreneurs that a real shot at redefining a category, but they were really true and authentic about the mission that they were going after. And also that we felt they had sometimes the craziness of being ready to go for something really big and global that will have a real impact in the category they're going after. This is really the common trait we're seeing in these entrepreneurs is that they are sacrificing a lot of their life into this journey, but they want to do it for something that really matters. So this takes time to identify as an investor, and entrepreneurs are becoming better and better at pitching. So that's why we try to get to know them before, understand them better inside out from a personal perspective, from a business perspective, to have a real view on who they are and the capacity to go after this opportunity, the opportunity we're going after. But the common trait is really this kind of level of ambition, this genuineness in the mission. And we hopefully will be right in most of his plays.
Yeah, fantastic companies that I know our listeners know well and love. So great to hear what really sets them apart. I know you don't have favorites, and I understand that, but are there any particular companies in the portfolio that you're particularly excited about at the moment, or any other things like that you'd want to share with our listeners, perhaps smaller firms that maybe others haven't heard of?
As you pointed out, I think every time I mention a specific portfolio company, I have to receive WhatsApp from my other founders saying, how come you spoke about X, Y, Z? So I would rather keep them happy and focused right now. But I think it's more how we're prioritizing some themes right now internally. So it's not specifically companies, but we're spending a lot of time around sustainability and not just as a theme to invest in, but also in a way to redefine our firm. We're becoming a big corp company. We're building something called Felix for Good, which is going to be a platform to invest in positive cause. And then seeing how sustainability is becoming top of mind, again, both for people and companies, rightly so, brings a lot of topics where Felix, we believe we can be relevant. But there will be a lot of brand being built to be a new authority in this category, being on the enterprise side with everything around carbon management, to on the personal side in terms of how to be impactful as a consumer or as a person. Web3 is obviously one of the beasts where we have been quickly been communicating about, and we have a very specific stand about it. And so a lot of our thinking is going toward this category, and it's actually a mission we're almost on a mission for this category not to be called Web3 in a few years' time. So we think it's kind of the Web3 just a branding, the same way Web2 was a branding back then, and we stopped talking about Web2 at some point. I think the key here is to build really the architecture and the infrastructure. And then we think now is the time when you're going to see great wave of talents building the infrastructure that's going to make this kind of decentralization play much more relevant to use case of today. So our mission is to find Web3 opportunities that simply are related to our themes, that are relevant, that are reinventing commerce on one side, which is a core theme at Felix, also that are transforming lifestyle categories. And on both sides, we think there will be a lot of things to do. The future of work is also a top priority for us. That is why we brought on board our new partner, Julien Codogno, to support this phase. Julien is coming from Meta. He spent 11 years there. He built Workplace and scaled it. He was before that at Microsoft. He's seen the pain point. And as mentioned a bit earlier, the future of work is fascinating. And we played it before with plays like Papier, Travel Perk, Unmind, and so on. But seeing the shift in power of the employers and towards the employee, and to see the duty of care employers have towards the employee is fascinating. And as a result, you have a new wave of entrepreneurs that are here and building software tools, enabling collaboration, enabling just wellness at work in a wider way, and building these businesses like brands. And so that's top focus also for us at Felix right now.
Fantastic. No, it's great to hear about the diversification and the areas that you're focusing your attention. We've talked a lot about the positive stuff, which is wonderful, but we all know that founder life is not always roses. So tell us a bit about some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome in recent years, because I think it's always important to talk about those as well.
I think it's life. Yeah, I mean, I really can't complain because overall it's, feel really privileged, and I think we all quite privileged in this audience. I hope so. But it's just mad. It's nonstop. If you combine your professional life and the way we operate at Felix, as you mentioned, we're a bit entrepreneurs in finance. We are entrepreneurs in finance somehow. And we have this type of DNA of trying to do everything ourselves, speaking to our investors that trust us, to obviously building very close relationship with our entrepreneurs. And that means there's no boundaries with your personal life. There's absolutely, you would speak to any of our entrepreneurs. I think one thing they would say about us is that we are accessible 24 hours 7, and we take pride in it. And that's part of the reason we enjoy what we do. But as a result, everything is blended when you're also at the time in your life where you're building your family, and you need to provide quality time to your children, to your puppy, and more importantly also to your wife. That works a lot too. Everything is mingled, for good or for worse, I don't know, we'll see. But the hard part has been building your professional life and your personal life at the same time, I would say.
It's such a challenge, isn't it? And you do have a young family, you're married to an entrepreneur, Gabby, as you mentioned. How do you manage to balance it all and ensure that you get enough of that quality family time and can have some perspective? Because I know these things are intertwined. I know that from almost 10 years of running JBM, but how do you find a balance? And is there any tips or advice you can have for others you've managed to strike this balance?
I mean, it's a journey. So we're learning. And I think we're a bit like the people and consumers trends we're observing. So we're lucky to be able to use some support, like a life coach, for example, to help us to make sure we somehow put some good practice in the way we manage our relationship, and we build awareness about each other, understanding our needs, and also supporting to build the right setup to have some quality time together. So throughout the years, we now have kind of ring fence a bit our Saturday as much as we can. The Sunday is quite busy work-wise, but having at least one day where we drop the weapon a bit and we focus on ourselves. That has been very helpful, especially also for Gabby, my wife. But yeah, I think you need to make time to reflect on how you can grow as an individual, as a professional, and as a parent and husband. And for me, the life coach, I say life coach because it helps me as much as at work or at home, has been a very valuable aspect of growing as an individual.
No, thank you. That's great to hear. And I guess from one family to another, your Felix family, I know you've built an incredible team and a great group of advisors. So what do you look for when you're hiring for Felix, and how would you describe the culture that you've created?
It's a good point, because I think if I had to summarize, I've been the one lucky to lead most of the recruitment, the hiring we've done over the years. I think we first looking, frankly, for someone we're happy to see every day in the office, which means someone with who we share values and where we can see ourselves projecting with herself or himself for many, many years, because that's the rare and precious aspect of being able to build a new partnership. Is you don't want to end up with a partnership by default. You want a partnership by choice, and you want to try to sustain this as much as possible. Then something which is critical for us is someone with high conviction. It sounds stupid, but we want true investor DNA. It doesn't mean this person has been an investor for 10 years before. I think some of our team members with the highest conviction actually were not per se investors before, but very high conviction. But it's something you can test in many, many ways. I mean, you're well positioned to know this with what you do, but I have some special tricks in interviews to test this.
Can you share those, Antoine, or are you going to keep those to yourself?
No, but so first it's just reflecting on what they've done in the past. But the beauty about today is that you can show high conviction as an investor. You don't need capital per se. You don't need capital. You don't need a lot of capital to buy one stock of Ocado shares because you think Ocado is going to be growing massively. You don't need money to buy Shopify when Shopify IPO because you think it's going to reinvent commerce online. And so on. You don't need money to put some sweat into backing one of your friends because you think this person is gonna rule the world and you want to be alongside this person. So there's a lot of ways to test, and the way I also do it usually is I always project this person as if I was bootstrapping their new VC firm, and I ask them what investment they would do from Felix portfolio and what would be. The first three investment will have to be some from Felix portfolio. So which one would it be? So that's a good way to see how they think about it. Also, if they've done a bit of homework. And the second part is which is more fun, is which companies from Felix portfolio they wouldn't touch, which in an interview format, that's get the high conviction of, because a lot of people want to be too polite and so on. And that shows actually that the conviction level is not strong enough. The other aspect we like to see is team players. And that's important for us because a lot of we are a firm that operates really where bringing everyone along, every opportunity, every founders we back. And that's something I think will set us apart also compared to other firms. And I don't know if it's good or bad per se, but a lot of firms are, an aggregation of partners, and each partner will do their deal, he or her deal. And frankly, it's been working very well for some firm, but it's not the type of firm we want to build here. So especially with our thematic approach, we want to make sure we ensure some kind of consistency in what in the companies we back, in the founders we back. So having a team player, and as a result, we always say we do the analogy with a football team. We really built the investment team without trying to build hire 11 strikers or 11 goalkeepers, but there's it's a very complementary team. Some people come from product backgrounds, some people come from growth, some people were entrepreneurs, some people were have all very different path and background, and also there's a lot of diversity, of course, but that really enrich the output of it, which is what Felix stands for.
So many brilliant tips and tricks there for anyone that might be interviewing Felix down the line. So I'm sure lots of people listening will be scribbling away some notes. Before we get to our wrap-up questions, I really wanted to make sure we asked you some advice for any founders that are listening that might be fundraising at the moment. And it's kind of a regular question we get, particularly around helping those refine their pitching skills. So what do you look for when you're assessing founders and businesses, who are pitching you for funding?
We have two vehicles, one early stage and one growth stage, but actually the pattern are fairly similar. The founding team will come ahead almost of a proposition for us. And that's why it's kind of the best scenario is really to be able to analyze patterns by getting to know the founders well ahead of time and being able to see them around over 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, to be able to assess really the kind of level of intensity, commitment, ambition they have towards what they're building, and also authenticity somehow. So the ability being able to assess the capacity to build a trusted relationship. This is our long journey, long partnership. And, we are here to return a lot of money to our investors, but we are also here to experience very unique journey from a human perspective. So the trust is very important. And then when it comes to business model, I mean, when we assess businesses, I think like every firm, we would assess the scalability, the defendability of a business model, the ability to build this kind of brand that's going to resonate and emerge as an authority in the category we're going after. And then our genuine capacity to add value. We're not a generalist firm, so it needs to be in our themes. It needs to be something where, if it's in our themes, naturally, we should be a relevant partner. But otherwise, we don't have to fight. We don't have to be opportunistic on trying to stretch ourselves in the air other categories, or because ultimately that could dilute our brand and what we stand for. So a great way to test this is how relevant we're going to be to this play. And if we're not, we're not.
That's great advice. And Antoine, are there any particular things that bug you, from all the founders that you speak to? Have there been consistent mistakes that anyone listening that might be in front of you anytime soon should avoid?
I think some of the patterns I would see is sometimes being too dismissive about, competition or risk or whatsoever, overselling somehow. The company can be a 1 year or 2 year company, and they say we are the leader in this market, in this market, in this market. The reality is that you're a 1 year old or 2 year old company, which with big aspiration, but trying to oversell can be also some kind of flag. Something I see, which is more on the very early rounds, which I find very clumsy, is the pitch deck where someone tried to, when the founders try to project return for you. So they have a slide with a return analysis about you're going to make a 10x or 35% IR in 10 years' time. We're here to be dreamers, actually. When we get in early in a company, we really want to project the best outcome possible, the biggest outcome possible, and make sure feel that we can even help the founders to move the goalposts even further throughout the journey. And when someone is already showing perspective on return, it's somehow someone thinking already about the exit. And the reality also simply is that when you're at the very early stage, you have no clue about what's going to happen. So most probably the exercise you put is not very tangible.
Yeah, no, that's very fair. Final question for our wrap-ups. We obviously know a lot of people want to work in VC, but it's not the easiest industry to get into. There's also lots of misconceptions about the industry. So what do you feel are the biggest misconceptions that we can kind of myth bust? And why is the VC industry such a good one for those that are really serious about sort of switching careers?
It's a good point, James. I think the reality with the VC industry is that you need to be passionate about investing. Except if you have a real plan for this to be a 2 to 3 year stand and have a next step very clear in mind afterwards. Making it's an easy way to be successful fast or be quick or it's a shortcut to something is a real misconception because it's really a long journey. If you think about it, our journey is very much aligned with the startup and entrepreneurs we back. And things take time. That's the reality. And so you can have a vanity of the up rounds and so on, but what matters is the end goal, the real journey that's going to happen with each one of the companies where you're making a bet on and with who you partner with. And to be successful in venture requires a lot of time, requires to have gone through cycles, requires to have experienced the death valley that a lot of companies face throughout the journey, and after the positive bump that comes afterwards, and when you're lucky with some amazing outcomes. But all this take time. Frederick backed Farfetch in 2010. The IPO was in 2018. We backed Miracle in 2012. Miracle was started in 2012. We're now 10 years ahead. It's a big company now, but all these companies take time. That's already Oatly, that got IPO'd last year, is a 30-year-old business. So don't do the mistake to think it's going to be a quick shortcut to a successful career, because things take time. The second mistake I see a lot in the industry, somehow it's even more with younger talents in VC than more experienced one, is not having the right level of empathy towards entrepreneurs. You think you're a VC, so you've got the power to say yes or no. But this is this is really not something to play with somehow. You have people that are massively dedicated to their business, that are hiring a lot of people, that have anxiety and feeling lonely, and entrepreneurship is so hard that having the right level of empathy is critical with these people, and making sure you behave well, and you build a reputation of working hard and be good to people, which is one of our motto at Felix.
That's so true. And it is a small world, and word does get round if you don't treat founders with the right levels of empathy and respect. And I know integrity is such an important thing for you and the Felix team. And I guess on the flip side, if you do behave in the right way, you can form these incredible relationships and go on these exciting journeys, which I guess is one of the great things about being in VC, is the people you meet and the stories you can be a part of. Thank you so much, Antoine. We're sadly at the end. I could talk to you for hours, but in one sentence, what do you think the future holds for Felix Capital?
The future, I think we are very ambitious. We are, we feel we are just about to become teenagers in our journey. So we want to be, one of our priorities is staying and carry on being perceived as a very specific firm in our industry, as a thematic firm, as a go-to firm when it comes to brand and communities, and helping people to shape great product, great branded proposition to consumers of today and tomorrow, or users of today and tomorrow, and not diluting this thematic and very specific angle, but amplifying it at global scale, at different stage of our journey. Really, our mission is to really partner with best agent of change, whatever, hopefully at the earliest stage possible, but down the line at any kind of stage. So we want to be perceived as relevant for these people, and for in order to get there, we need to carry on building this firm and being better and better at what we do, and having more aura at global scale. So while staying crafted. So the big challenge is actually not becoming a massive firm, but being able to have a much bigger impact.
Sounds like a fantastic future ahead. Very exciting. And what would you like to be remembered for at the end of your career, Antoine?
If we stick to the career side, I think, I suspect, like anyone in our industry, I want to make sure that what we build with Felix remains and becomes more and more of a relevant brand in our industry. The entrepreneurs we back, we're trying to shape our category in a very humble way, but ambitious way. So I hope that when I end my career, that this would have been achieved. And I hope I will have many, 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 many memories of great human adventure with entrepreneurs, because that would have mean that we've been very successful as a firm. So
wonderful. I love that.
That's one of the best part of our day-to-day job, is being able to build this relationship. It's not always easy, but it's precious.
Love it. And this is the 40-Minute Mentor. Do you have one yourself? And if you could be mentored by anybody, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
You take me a bit off guard on this one. I think as I mentioned before, I'm using a lot of the support there's no taboo to have today in today's world, being the life coach and actually other people to help me grow as a human being. And that's been that has really changed really helped me in my career a lot. And I'm kind of very curious about this. So I really want to explore any new proposition that helps you grow as a human being and a professional. I think my partner, Frederick, has been really also a mentor to me throughout the years. Is a real role model in terms of his passion and dedication to our job and how we job as an investor and job as an entrepreneur. So being able to build Felix alongside him and together as a result has been amazing for me, and especially in the first few years where we had so much quality time, just the two of us. He's a bit like almost a big brother, being 12 years older. I don't know if I should mention that, but it's been. I'm very thankful for this relationship, of course.
Wonderful. And finally, what last piece of career or life advice would you like to leave our listeners with?
Stay curious, be curious. I think it's very important, and make sure you don't have any regrets. So it's easy to say, but just learning that every year, I think life goes so fast. So being curious will enhance creativity, will enhance opportunities, and will have a massive impact. It's not very simple, but it's so important not to get stuck into a comfort zone and try to always learn and carry on growing as a human being.
Love that. Final piece of advice, Antoine. Thank you so much for joining us on the 40-Minute Mentor. Very excited to see how Felix evolves over the years ahead and all the incredible companies you're going to back. Thank you for sharing your story and some fantastic mentorship.
Thanks a lot, James. It was a real pleasure.
It was a real pleasure chatting to Antoine, and I really appreciated all of his insightful advice and great mentorship. I especially love how he's approaching the economic downturn from a position of optimism and seeing it as a great opportunity for founders to strengthen their culture and their businesses. He also gave some great insights into what Felix looked for when hiring and what you should keep in mind both when interviewing to join the fund or when pitching to them as a founder. He's a great investor that's backed some of my favourite brands. So if you're a consumer founder looking for a fantastic VC partner, Felix are well worth checking out. And that's a wrap for today's episode. We've got one more brilliant VC joining us next week before we shift our focus from VCs to early stage founders. So if you have any burning questions for early stage founders, send them to us at info@jbmc.co.uk and we'll answer your question in our upcoming feature series. Until then, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and leave us a review. Every one of them is greatly appreciated and really helps us to bring you more awesome content. See you next week.